Hi everyone, Michelle here from the Creative Cove. Thank you for joining me on my channel today. I wanted to share with you a quick little study on watercolors. I kind of only just started using watercolors myself recently and I've fallen in love with them. They've taken me some getting used to because I've always used acrylics and acrylics dry quickly. When watercolors have a very different way that they sit on paper and absorb into different papers. So it's really just playing with different watercolors, different papers, different subjects, and then falling in love with it. It really is a wonderful medium, and it has a really beautiful effect in the end. So what I wanted to show today was some inspiration that I received a napkin and a swap that I did with a lovely lady named Lauren. And this napkin has some beautiful flowers on it that I thought would be a good tutorial to show you. And I've been doodling them myself for my journals, and they're really fun and I find it very relaxing. So I make myself a cup of coffee and I sit in a comfortable, quiet place and I just doodle and play. One of the things I did want to share with you today as well is these beautiful hand-poured watercolor pigments that I picked up from the Pixies Playground on Etsy. They're beautiful. They come in these cute little, I think this is a quarter, they call it a quarter pan, and it came with 9 colors, and she's got a whole kinds of different selection. It came with this little thank you note with a couple of extra color samples. And I'm in love with these paints. They're great. They flow really nice. They're high pigment qualities. They blend really well. So if you're interested in these watercolors, check out the Pixies Playground, and I'll link the Etsy shop below. And let's get started on doing some watercolor here. So we're not going to do something as detailed as this as far as adding things together in one composition. I wanted to break it down a little bit more simplified for you. So let's start with, let's say, one of these flowers here. So you're going to need an HB pencil and an eraser if you have it, and a piece of watercolor paper. Now the paper is important. So this is a relatively cheap kind of paper. I think it's called, Strathmore watercolor. It's not a super high-end quality water paper as far as I'm concerned, but it's a great little pad to start with. It's got enough in there that you can experiment with. You can see it does absorb the paint properly like a watercolor, for watercolor. But if you decide to invest into watercolor, try all kinds of different papers because they'll react differently to paint, and you will find the one that works best for you and your style. All right, so let's start with a sketch here. So I'm going to just draw a little flower. So all I do is I start in the middle, I give myself the little center, and I hope you can see it. And then I pull out narrow and I just kind of wiggle it up and bring it back. And I just want to draw some petals. I'm not worried about super detail. I'm not a botanical artist. I just want to capture some cute little flowers that I can cut out and use in my junk journals. So you can see I'm just repeating the style of petal. So narrow as it leaves the center and widens. And I pull it and I squiggle it right back. I try to keep them the consistent size, and I give it 5 petals. So that's the one, the pink one. And I'm sorry, I don't know what this flower is called, maybe a fuchsia. And then let's do the yellow one in here that I saw, which is like a buttercup. And you can draw inspiration off anything, a piece of fabric that you have, something you've seen in a magazine. So for the buttercup, I just kind of do these funky little lines with circles at the end. And I try to stay light with my pencil because I don't mind the pencil showing through. I kind of like that look. But if it gets too dark, it will make the water in the paint will make the pencil bleed, and we don't want that because then it gets kind of muddy. So you want to stay relatively light. So for the buttercup, it's a very similar petal, but it's wider at the base, narrow here, wide at the base, and a short broad leaf. So I'm going to do, let's say we're going to do another one coming this way, and they're all going to tuck behind each other. Another one and another one. And then I just erase the piece I don't want. So there's our little buttercup. And then I'd like to show you some berries. So all I do is I do a round circle as best I can. They're not going to be perfect. Just having fun, relaxing, sketching, nice little quiet space. Give myself how the berries attach to each other with the stem. And then I'm going to give myself a leaf or two. So I just do these round, narrow ovals. Again, not a botanical artist, just having fun trying to capture the shape and form of these plants. So the berries, they have a little edge at the top. And so what you can do is you can put that anywhere, and that will indicate the direction the berries are growing. So if you put them right here, the berries are facing up. If you put one in the middle, the berry is facing towards you. All right, let's have fun with the paint now. So I am using this little collection. I got it at Michael's. It's called Craft Smart. This is the number 2 out of that 7 pack, and I'll try and find and link it below what collection this is. I got it on clearance, but you can use any soft bristle brush. You do want very soft edges because watercolors, you know, I consider it quite delicate. So I'm going to use a little bit of water in my old container here, and I keep a piece of like napkin scraps to absorb any excess water or paint. So let me move that out of the way, it's casting a shadow. So let's start with the berries. So I'm going to use this apricot color, and I'm not going to do any blending today. I just want to keep it as simple as possible. I'm just going to use the pigment itself and maybe a pigment on top, but with watercolor you would have a little tray and you'd kind of build up colors. And there's quite a science behind watercolor with building up colors. It's amazing how many colors you can actually create. So I'm just using this right out of the box, right out of the little pan. I love this apricot color. You can see it's very warm, and what I love vintage journals, so it's a very vintage color for me, which I'll probably do quite a bit of work with this color. So you can see I dab my brush in. It's very wet. I dip in the paint and I just apply it, and it can bubble up and leave quite a pool of watery paint there, and that's okay because it's going to create these really pretty variations of color on the paper as it absorbs. So I'm going to rinse my brush, clean it off. I'm going to go into this azo red. I'm going to dab with lots of water, and I'm going to apply the color. Now with watercolor, like I said, I'm pretty new to watercolor, but I've noticed there's a few different ways you can use it. You can use watercolor where you're using wet on dry paper, or you can, which I did there, or I can wet, apply some water where I want the paint to go, then dab into the pigment and just touch into that water with the pigment, and it will create these really beautiful, again, pockets of color. So if you find you've got too much water or too much paint, you just take your paper towel and you dab, and it will pull it right off. So you have a little bit of time to correct things, but once the pigment is dry and the water has dried into the paper, then you can't correct it. But the fun about this is you never know really how it's going to dry. I mean, I suppose if you're a watercolor artist, you figured it out. But because I'm new, I never know what effect I'm going to get, and I just love that. So that's a bit too much paint for me, so I'm going to take a little bit off. And I'm just going to throw a little bit on. And I'm not worried about painting in the full shape. I just want to throw the pigment in and let it do what it wants to do with the water. And I love the look of watercolor. It's very delicate. It captures the delicacy of these flowers. When acrylic would be a little bit more work and trickier to capture that effect. So you can see I leave some of the white paper exposed. I kind of like that look. Again, if I feel there's too much, I just dab it, bring it up. But I think I'm going to leave that for now. So you can see I've made this one significantly darker than the first two that I did. Just as an experiment, just to see how this paint dries and how the color absorbs. So now I'm gonna clean my brush, wet it again, and go into some yellow. So the yellow is really vibrant. This is just such a beautiful paint. And then I'm just gonna clean my brush and spread that paint right out. Now, for anybody who does use watercolor, they probably have very serious techniques on how to paint these types of flowers, but I again just want to have fun with it. So I'm just dabbing into that apricot again, and I'm gonna dab into the center and let it bleed into that yellow. I'm gonna let that dry. So let's go back to the berries while they're drying. If you were to add colors to this paint while it's wet, it will saturate and mix, and you're gonna see how it creates a whole new effect. But I want it to dry so that I can add a little bit of different color on top. So I'm gonna go back into these berries and I wanna intensify this color. So I'm just gonna give it a second coat in a few spots. So you can see here, I hope, I'm gonna try and bring them up, hopefully it's in focus, how these berries have dried and the pigment has left these little watermark ridges. And that's the effect that watercolor has. And I just love that about it. So you're either gonna love it or not love it, but give it a try because it's amazing what you can come up with. And like I said, it's always a fun surprise how your paints dry. And once you get good at watercolor, you can put the paint exactly where you want it to get your desired effect. Okay, so I'm just gonna go into the green now. So I rinsed my brush. I'm gonna go into this pretty green, which is green oxide. This, again, wet brush. And I'm just gonna now put in my petals. So if my berries are really soaking wet, I would wait because I don't want the green in the berries. So this is really thick here. So you can see how intense the pigment is. So in order to lighten it, if I wanted, I rinse my brush, I keep the water in the brush and I pull the water right through the leaf and it will draw that paint across. So there's some berries. All right, let's see. This is still a little wet, but I think we can have some fun with it, a little bit more fun. Let's make it a little orange. So while it's wet, if I were to add this yellow, this Hansa yellow, and dab it in, you can see what it does and how it builds up these colors here. Let's see if I can do it closer to you. So again, it's still wet, so I can dab that in, and you see how the color just bleeds? I mean, it's just so fun. There's really, you can't do it wrong, you know? You just have fun, and you either like the effect in the end or you don't, and you just scrap it and start another one. But these cute little studies are even a really nice thing to paste into your journals. They don't have to be a cohesive composition. They can just be little studies, and you can cut them in or paste the whole paper in. So let's try darkening it a little bit. So here's some burnt umber, and I want to put that in the center. I'm going to do it while it's wet so that it bleeds into all the other colors. There. I think I'll add a little bit of that burnt umber into the center of this guy as well, and just intensify the center a bit. So there's some quick little studies on watercolor. Again, it's just a practicing and having fun with it, getting in a really cozy place and giving it a try. And you'll be amazed how this watercolor gives these really pretty results in the end. And then you can just cut them and put them into tags, or even make cards with them for exchanges that you do with other junk journalers. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was educational for you. If you did like it, please hit the subscribe button and the like button, and feel free to leave me any comments on what you would like to see next. And again, all the information of what I used today will be linked at the bottom. Have a great day, guys. Bye.